Hey guys.
Cool.
Yeah, right. Hey guys, welcome back. This is the Ready to Talk podcast. Today I am here with Lauren, and she's going to talk about finding your community and how to basically be a part of it and support it. Before we get there, what I would like to point to is that link scrolling down there. Not only can you find Lauren, but also there is Dee McClure SD Bailout, and that is our local San Diego bailout fund. Remember that people are still protesting out there. So if you are able to, consider donating to that link right there. And you can, again, search for Dee McClure Bailout. Yay! And then before we get started, Lauren, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. It's my first, or one of my first time doing a podcast. So this is kind of fun and new to me. Thank you for having me. My name is Lauren Garces. I'm an event producer here in San Diego. I've done a few events in a couple other fun cities and met those communities. But right now I'm in San Diego, planted. I am the president CEO of a new LLC that I just started called Social Artistry. Again, event production company. We do some marketing outreach to multicultural communities. And then also I work with a lot of nonprofits. So I help on the programming consulting end a lot of the time. So that's a little bit about me. I'm involved with a lot of great organizations, and I'm sure we'll talk about all those in the discussion today. So thanks for having me.
Hey, of course. I'm super excited. Whoa, hello. Oh, okay. Well, that was strange. Sorry, I posted our thing and I was like, ready? You're going to have no words. Well, I kind of fixed that. So you just told me that you started all of this in COVID. So tell us a little bit about that, Lauren, about starting a business that plans a lot of events.
So I've been doing events for about I want to say 8 years now. I've been doing events in San Diego for 8 years. I was with the production company Silk Road Productions prior to this, and my mentor was there. And so this year, I guess I was like opening up a new chapter for myself and opening up like this a whole new set of like blooming that I was gearing myself up towards. And then no one knew the pandemic was going to happen this year. And again, like we're doing this work in the community, worked with a whole bunch of wonderful communities for 8 years now. And again, like it's just trying to adapt them to the new situation at hand. And I know, again, events for what they do for communities, they bring them together, they empower them. They allow them to share and highlight their resources and their beautiful cultures. Mm-hmm. And that's such a new environment to be in right now. And so, a lot of what, with me starting Social Artistry this year, it almost became, just starting it for these communities and again, figuring out the new ways that we have to navigate these challenges, but do it together. So for me, Social Artistry is very huge on, again, just thinking about the art of events and then thinking about like where all these people in our community are, what are their challenges, and how can we use their talents to still bring people together and get them the resources that they need. And so that's such a new environment to navigate. And it's been fun. Again, I started it, I think, in May, which was Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And so nothing more fitting because, the Asian American community and Pacific Islander community is very huge to me and my background. So a lot of fun.
Yes, man. And so I know, like, oh my gosh, when people are getting together now, it's a lot of Zoom. It's a lot of online things. And then now, luckily, because we found that outside can be safer, learning how to plan safe events like outside and like having like businesses able to run their business like safely outside. What is one problem / one solution that keeps coming up for you and the businesses that you speak to?
Oh, this is okay. there's so many problems that obviously have been brought to the surface, and for good reason during this pandemic. It shows the disparities of community. It shows it makes us recognize that everybody is not in the same boat, and when we face challenges, we face them in very different ways. But back to your question, what is it that kind of has been the solution, or whatever, that I think is one, we have to do it together. We have to be compassionate and do these things together. And so, the challenges for our small business owners, they reach out to their community, they tell their community, hey, this is what we're going through, help us out however you can. And that's oftentimes just eating out more than we know. And we realize how much eating out and supporting a small business goes versus eating at a bigger chain, where they already have the infrastructure, they pay an outside marketing company to do all these things, blah, 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 versus, I work a lot with the Convoy district. I'm seeing mom and pops, or I'm seeing the younger kids taking over their family shops and navigating these new things as new entrepreneurs, or so essentially my thought is, we have to get through these things together. You have to reach out to your community, and then also at the same time, on the other side, if you're not involved in your community, you be compassionate towards the community that you're in. So that's been huge for me. And again, seeing all the problems that are coming up, to me, I think the solution again is getting through it together, getting through it compassionately together as a community.
Yeah. And it's so, I just feel for so many reasons, including the ones you've mentioned, community is such a big thing. And now can be the time, if you haven't felt part of a community, this is where you really can. I've never felt so connected to San Diego because of what has happened. And I've also never felt so impassioned to actually try to be part of the community, if that makes sense, because San Diego is so transient. And I feel we all kind of know the San Diego flake culture that happens where so it does sometimes make it hard to really be invested in your community. And for me, the big change kind of was after George Floyd's death and the Black Lives Matter movement having that surge, and everyone awkwardly, because of COVID too, literally having the time and the space to reflect and be this is messed up, and this stuff is going on in everyone's community, let alone country. It's this is going on in all of our communities. This is a reason why to be part of a community. It's I'm literally letting down a part of my community and letting them die. That's still, they're a part of my community because they're people who live here too, also they're just humans in general. And also I want to be there for other communities. And so what has that looked like for you, and maybe you personally, and also for your company?
I mean, you're spot on with saying we need to recognize that everyone's human, period. And again, if it doesn't upset you that people in our community are dying and they're innocent, it needs to upset you, because that's your community. And for me at least, I want my community to reflect my values and be safe and be equal and be just and be a safe space for anyone to be free in this country. And so, that's huge for me. I think that's such a big part of my work is what do I do that allows space for other people in these communities to shine. And now more than ever too, again, we're seeing all of these injustices. We're seeing these huge disparities that, so many people in who have been doing this activist work for years and years on end, we have to give it up to them, because they are addressing it. They've been addressing it. They've been showing the historical context of everything that's been happening. They've been showing like the systemic problems from these broken systems and just demanding that they be fixed and they be right. And, finally, I think now that everyone's at home, and again, we're almost like forced to be with our social media at the same time because we're very, invested in finding out what's the news and then also finding out what our friends are doing and on our feed. So there's a double-edged sword to that. But it's good that we have this time to finally realize like every little bit that we contribute to our community truly does count. Whether that be voting, whether that be donating money to a bail fund like you're sharing below, to the people who have been doing this work, again, give it up to them for years on end. They've been doing they've been organizing protests. They've been leading the discussion, leading the fight to understand why we are not having as many changes as quickly as we need. But again, like with the pandemic bringing all of this forward, it's again giving people the time to introspect, figure out where they stand on all of these issues. And, we have to really look at ourselves deep inside and keep addressing these things, keep learning, keep unlearning at the same time. And again, figure out where we are in that fight, because, in our history books, we'll read that, like in the civil rights era, blah, 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 like there were people for and there were people against these things that obviously needed to happen for change, for us to be able to vote, for us to have like better footing in these playing grounds. And so you either are on the right side of history, I want to say, now during these times, or you're just going to kind of be left behind in the past. And, there's a lot of people who want to stay in the past and keep these systems that afford them the privileges that they're lucky to have. But, a lot of us want these same privileges or these just same equal civil rights to happen for other community members of ours. And in our own way, we each have our own little fight to help make that happen. So that's why I think getting involved in community is the way to do it.
Yeah. And like you're so right now, it's just more heightened. Like it's very clear, like the things we can do that affect our community or not. And like, and that, like you said, action steps, like voting, like getting involved, and then also even just like not doing anything or not saying anything, mm-hmm. upholding that white supremacy, not acknowledging the privileges you have, like that also, that affects the community greatly. Mm-hmm. And so like, you're right, it's so important. And just like getting involved is so important. And I feel like for a lot of us, like I'm a new activist, so it's just been like, going, yeah, like it's been a lot, but it's been necessary because it's so strange, because it's like, I'm new to this, and guess what? Black people were dying the whole time. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, mm-hmm. So not, I don't like it when people like take those comments and they're just like, oh, like, don't shame me, don't blah, 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 or like, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel that. And I'm just like, well, feeling regret of that, remorse or shame, like, is normal, but no one's telling you to like, you're bad and like pushing you down in the dirt, like just to like realize that, hey, like you are privileged. Like I am privileged, and I know that I haven't stood up for people where I should have, because I was like, well, no one else is. And at the same time, not thinking that I was a person like that. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, not realizing it because I was like abiding by a racist system. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, and again, I have so much to learn on this journey. I'm still learning on this journey, and all I can do is kind of share some things that have really resonated with me and tie me to a bigger purpose. So, like, again, everybody has a little place in this fight. And, a lot of people think that, like, for example, hi people in the chat, for example, they think that like the simplest thing like voting doesn't matter. And I, with the nonprofits that I work with elected officials very often. I work with like business groups. I work with whole spectrum of people, and I've seen them behind the scenes, and those are the people you vote for, period. And the sooner you get involved with understanding where they are on the issues, and then voting for the person that lines up best with your issues, that good. Then you're like one step closer to seeing something done in your community at a bigger level. The thing that I like to push for is to stay involved, past the voting if possible. Like, see what they're continuing to do. What is your elected official doing in the community? Like, they have town halls pretty much every month, and they're always listening to the community at those town halls. And if your representative is good enough and is listening to the concerns of the community, they'll do something about it. And again, that's who votes them in the office. So there's work on that end. But at the same time, I also don't think the government can handle it all by themselves. And I think that's where this special little nonprofit steps in and does the work that, again, there's a part of the community that often gets overlooked because the elected officials have to worry about so many issues from so many different parts of the community that, again, nonprofits step in a lot of the time, and they give out these free breakfast programs or free lunch programs. Or they're for example, I work with Asian Business Association. We specifically try to reach out to minority owned business owners to get them small business technical assistance, again, for no cost, and get them through all the challenges that they're going through. And that's what our nonprofit gets funding for. We work again with government entities who allow us to do this work. And at the same time, we reach a part of the community that needs it. So there's a lot of different ways that people can get involved. And again, we keep going back to something as simple as voting, but beyond that, things like volunteering with a local nonprofit. And, I want to challenge people to look at the smaller nonprofits that don't get the commercials on the TV. Those companies or those nonprofits, amazing. They have these marketing budgets that they're able to get a commercial out to let people know hey, we have a food drive, we need you to come out. Versus I work with a lot of smaller nonprofits who would never have that budget to make a commercial on the TV, but at the same time they're still doing great work, and they're still reaching a part of the community that maybe gets overlooked quite often. And so I would encourage people to look into these smaller nonprofits that do exist in their community and try to volunteer with those ones versus the ones that can send an email out and say, hey, we need volunteers to a list of 10, 20,000 people on their newsletter list, and they'll get it. And again, every single part, every single person, every single organization kind of sort of has its part to play. But the ones who could need a little more help, and your help goes a longer way, is with the smaller nonprofits that don't know how to reach out to you just yet.
I freaking love that you said that, because I was just thinking about this is so long ago, but my auntie was just hey, Trixie, do you know somewhere Casey can go volunteer for her high school hours? And it's just I only know of the bigger nonprofits, and it's just but there are smaller nonprofits who could use that, volunteering from high school students who just it would like you said, it would go it would go a longer way, because it's just they're smaller, they don't get as much help. And then that's the hard part about small nonprofits, right? It's just well, right now all you get is this for your budget for funding, right? Even if you get any funding at all. And the thing is and there's not necessarily anything wrong with bigger nonprofits that have been established, because that's just how it happens, right? It's kind of easier if you've been established for a while, it's easier to find you because you have that budget. But we need to grow our smaller nonprofits, like you said, because our smaller ones are also a lot of the time they're more BIPOC, they really are more BIPOC, and they can be more niche and serving parts of the community that those other nonprofits that's already covered. That's great. They're covering this area over here. Let's go find the smaller nonprofits that are doing amazing things that no one knows yet. There's I had Khalil Blue. Do you know Khalil?
I feel like I passed at events. So like what happens with the San Diego community is like we'll go to enough events that we'll pass each other and finally we'll have like that interaction and know each other for real. So I feel like I've been at events, but like I don't know if we've had a discussion yet, and I look forward to it, whether it be Zoom or in person.
Yeah, so
but yeah.
he has this wonderful like little nonprofit. Well, I don't say little. He has this wonderful nonprofit that's newer, and it's called Soul, like your soul, your heart and soul, Social Workers. And
nice.
He has one of the events, the programs that he has is a QPR training for suicide prevention that is also mixed in with like writing a script. And I think they're aimed more at teenage to young adult, but like it's so cool, like it's so niche and it's so amazing. And I did the program with mostly younger people, which is totally fine for me, but it was like amazing because it's like there's just this conversation with education, right? We're talking about how to prevent suicide and like how to talk about it in an effective way, because it comes up, and it does come up for young people. I think as much as I feel like people want to be in disbelief of that, unfortunately, a lot of people get like shunned or not believed for their mental health issues, but it happens. And so it was so beautiful to be in a space where there was education around it, there was talking around it, there was space for healing and art to also like, how do we process these feelings? How do we learn to talk? How do we learn to cope with our art? And like, that's freaking cool. But I'm like, a lot of people don't know about them. Like, I just found out about them. And so like I love that you like mentioned that, like with smaller nonprofits, like they're smaller, hopefully just for now. And then hopefully they can grow with our community's help.
Absolutely. And you know, the other fun thing, I see like some people on the chat, like so shout out to like Taiwanese American professionals who, so I'm president of the National Association of Asian American Professionals chapter, and we always do like co-partner events because again we're like smaller nonprofits essentially, and so like there's limited leaders, and so it's easier for us to all work together to put these events out and like programs out and resources for our community in that way. And so like when you get involved and volunteer with like a smaller nonprofit, there's also a chance that you could probably be a leader in it, just because like we're looking for leaders. Like with NAP, our mission is to build leaders, but at the same time, just like again, looking at the San Diego environment, there's a lot of opportunities for people to become leaders in their community too, just by simply starting to volunteer, finding out about it, and then like just caring enough for your community who tries to give you space, who tries to allow you to share your culture, whatever that may be. And then again, connect with other people in the community who share those same values. So, you know, when I say like, hey, get involved with your community, I know it's hard. And like you said something like, so San Diegan has like what is it? Like a flaky personality to it. Yeah, that I have seen, you know, from the event side of things, like it stresses us out because we won't see people buy tickets like until the day of whatever is happening. And that's so stressful because like on the organizer end, you're like, okay, I'm accounting for like for San Diego Night Market, we're accounting for 2,000 people. Only 2,000 people bought something online. And then on the day of, it shot up to like 10,000. And that changes things like dramatically, but that's again like kind of the nature we're working with in San Diego is like we have so many, I guess, like plans lined up or things that we want to do or like be free and recreational, blah blah blah, that it's like, how am I feeling that day? Am I gonna go then? So I encourage people, like I know we all have those days where we're like, we have our introverted side, we're like, I don't know if I wanna show up to this or whatnot, but it goes a long way. I cannot stress out enough how much just showing up means to, especially again, the smaller nonprofit communities. And again, there's opportunities for you to also become a leader in those communities if you're ever so inclined, because we could all use the help right now.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. And I kind of want to go back to another thing that you said earlier, because it relates to this too. You were talking about, know your local officials, vote for local local officials, like find out what they do after. I think, it's really easy to be jaded right now when you look at our country. And I mean, I understand that. I feel super jaded and I feel very scared, but that doesn't necessarily, no, not necessarily. That doesn't mean I shouldn't vote. And it also, like, it doesn't mean that I should shun, like, my local government. I think people forget that, like, if you want to actually feel that impact, like, really get more involved with, like, your local government and, like, following what they do, because at least to me, that actually seems more achievable. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so, like, it's so, politics is so strange, and being California is so strange, because it's like, sometimes it feels like, well, California's California. It always votes the way California votes. Like, that's just how it is, where people feel like, oh, my vote doesn't count because we already know how this is going to turn out, which is not necessarily the best attitude to have. But when it comes to your local government, you can really see that impact right away. Right? Like,
and with voting, it's not just for the elected officials. There's so many, like, key propositions that are brought up onto our ballot that just get snuck by. And, like, I don't want to, like, document certain ones, but for example, like, a big example of what's happening is, like, we'll see, like, developers who are pushing out communities put something on the ballot and just hope that it slips by, essentially, that not enough people realize that, like, hey, if you vote no on this proposition, then it doesn't displace, like, 600, like, minority elders from this community. So there'll be things like that on the ballot that are super important. And again, like, every single vote counts on those matters. And those are, again, a direct reflection of who's remembering to get civically engaged. And, for a lot of our community, there's a lot of challenges, especially right now. A lot of people are just trying to figure out how to make rent and survive, and take care of their families. That's huge. But I also think, like, taking care of your family means, like, shaping the environment that's around them. And one of the big ways that's done is by the votes and what's put on those propositions, and by those elected officials who are supposed to listen to you and your community. So, again, I think there's room for everybody kind of to become a leader in their own right and eventually in their community. What we see with, like, town halls and, like, town councils, blah, 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 is like an older, usually white generation running the meetings. And so they only have that one perspective. But imagine if our younger folks, got involved with those meetings and they shared the troubles that they're going through. It opens up a whole new perspective that people need to listen to and hopefully make some changes at the higher level to help the people. So, yeah.
Yes, these are so important. And so, like, I wanted to connect that to, like, again, like, with, like, the small business thing, like, it's really strange. Like, sometimes, like, thinking smaller or even more just, like, more personal, more niche, right? Like, I know right now, sometimes for a lot of us, big government seems not tangible and kind of like, but definitely everything happening in your local community, we can go there. Like, and then, like, kind of, it's not the same thing, but, like, looking at, like, they're nonprofits and that's great and they already have help. And sometimes you really need to focus, like, on the smaller the community, or the community that's, like, unseen, really, right? Like, get more niche, like, literally search your zip code, right? Like, go into your own zip code, like, or your own part of your city, and, like, find what nonprofits exist there. Because there are a lot of nonprofits that I feel like people don't realize, which I didn't really realize until now, actually. Like, but there are a lot of different nonprofits doing a lot of really cool things. It's just don't know about them yet.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and again, they're a lot of the times the organization's so small, again, they're just trying to serve a part of the community. So they usually only have enough staff to, like, support that part of the community versus, like, getting the message out to other people. It's kind of where I, like, step in sometimes and, again, support the nonprofits to, like, let them know, like, hey, we have this event going on, and then you get to see all the resources from the nonprofit at that event or something like that. So again, there's so many. The other fun thing that you're bringing up is, like, the small businesses. I feel like small businesses, like, they show a part of the community that, like, should be highlighted the most, because like no one's like, yup, I got this McDonald's in my neighborhood. Look how cool that ish is, you know, like look at that. No one's like that. You know what I'm like? I'm like, oh hey, I love Convoy District. Convoy District is my community. We got Cashew Chicken and Beer, we got commentary, we got Lumiok, we got dumpling in, crab, like it goes on and on and on and on. And now we have murals and blah blah blah. So like that's what I've been trying to build. I'm trying to build with them, because they essentially were the neighborhood like when I was in college. So like shout out to like AB Samahan from college. I was like chairperson of that for a little bit in time. But yeah, so we would go to Convoy District, and it wasn't as heavily branded back then as it is like as we're doing now. But we would know like, hey, there's these boba spots in Convoy that we go to. We go to Tap X to hang out. There was this thing I think called A Cafe, and then Val's Bigger Burgers. We went to those things after like our big events. And that was because, again, like those were the small businesses where we felt like our community was safest, and it was also like allowed to like thrive at the same time. So, shout out to the small businesses for holding it down and really being like, I think like the representation of a community, because no one ever is going to be like, yep, again, this is my McDonald's. And I mean, like, some no hate to McDonald's too. I work like McDonald's has been a sponsor for ours, and I love them. You know, they give free Big Macs and free McFlurries at our events. That's cool. Because they're trying to reach out to our community. They realize that our community is growing, and that we are a force to be reckoned with. And so, like, again, the sooner all our communities start to realize that our voice matters and that we can get involved and do and make big changes, cool, bigger things start happening, and hopefully better things for more equal playing fields for everyone.
Yeah, and small businesses is such a great way, like, really to, like, know your community and see what's out there. Like, I know one of the things that, like an easy action to support Black lives in our Black community is, like, shop Black-owned businesses in San Diego, So it's been, like, that, like, if you love food, but, like, if you love food, like, that's something that you could easily explore. It's like, yeah, like, all your local stuff, Convoy, the best ever. But, like, it's so cool. Like, there's so many other places. And you can try different foods, you don't have to like do you don't even have to do like a different like event. It's like you want to eat, and really that's what makes you feel good. Like, try like breakfast, bitch. Like, there's so many small businesses that are so cool and so unique. Like, and that's like, sorry. Like, and then you're super right? Like, no one's going to be like, this is my McDonald's. Like,
yeah. And some people do. I mean, like, there's like a certain one, I think, isn't it down south? There's like people know like there's a 2-story McDonald's or whatever. It's like a hangout for all the birthdays. It is what it is. It is what it is. Again, like if that's all your community has, be proud of it too. But again, like be really, really proud for the small businesses, because they are going through, like, I feel like having a small business is like having a child, period. And you have to constantly be taking care of it, making sure it's okay. And then at a certain point with the small businesses, they employ like our friends, our neighbors, our community. And so like they start taking care of other people through what they do. The other like thing that like you're talking about, like with like, oh, we get to go enjoy these all awesome like foods like from like Black owned businesses. It also represents their culture. So like a lot of the time, like, especially with like our minority communities, food is the way to our hearts. Food is the way that we say I love you to other people, and it's who we are. And so a lot of the small businesses, they usually are like a restaurant of some sort or like a retail store, but it's usually representative of their culture in some way, and it provides that authentic experience for you to get connected with that as well, and open yourselves up to that. So another fun thing that I like to think, and like what I try to do with my work is like, you have to also be bringing up other communities with you. So like, if our Asian community is doing well, at the same time, I want to make sure that we're supporting our Black owned businesses. We're also supporting our Hispanic owned businesses. I work with Asian Business Association as the outreach, marketing, and events, and we're part of the Strategic Alliance, which consists of the Central San Diego Black Chamber of Commerce and then also the San Diego County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So it's been huge for me, like also to like, even if I'm like, promoting and supporting like Asian owned businesses and bringing up our community there, I also want to make sure that we're bringing up our Black owned businesses and our Hispanic owned businesses, minority owned businesses, women owned businesses, people like all these marginalized communities that could need that extra support because they usually have more barriers to come into as they're starting their business, whether that be language barriers or, just figuring out and finding the capital to start these businesses in the first place. It's a whole thing, and they could use all the support that they can. I think a lot of the time what happens with our cultural communities is that we don't want to ask for help too, but at the same time, like we're putting these resources into play, and we're just trying to, well, now during these times, trying to just keep them surviving past the pandemic, because again, they're so important. They really do represent the neighborhood, and again, they're such a huge part in supporting that neighborhood also. So
yeah, that's beautiful. Like it's beautiful to hear, especially because I feel like for me, it feels very like, my parents are immigrants. And of course, we're going to uplift like the Filipino community, and then there comes like the part like where it sometimes become like, no, just focus on us mindset, because, and like the assimilation, like the history of like Asian Americans, Filipino Americans, Pacific Islanders, like that assimilation aspect of it and having to assimilate and how that's separated us from other communities or even pitted us against other communities like the Black community. And so like, it's beautiful for you to say that, because I know, unfortunately, that's not how everyone thinks yet. Like there's so much history that drives us apart and makes us, like there's a difference between like separating our communities because we want to be apart, and maybe like that started that way historically, maybe so everyone feels safe. But there's like another thing where it's like, yeah, we might want to have our own communities to celebrate ourselves, but we can also like go to each other. Like, where it feels like more welcome, where it really does feel like we can look out for each other. Because yes, we have our different communities, but we're also a community together. Like, I love just like the way you talk, because I know you said that very explicitly with what you were saying, but even like from the beginning, like the way you talk, like the beliefs that you have, the way you work, it is very inclusive. It's literally just like our community, like this is what we can do for each other. Like we can work together. Like that's how it works. We all come together. Like it's just beautiful to hear that, like that's how you work, and that's how just like people work in general, and that our community actually works that way. And that's a thing. Like it's not as this as like I feel like it's made out to be sometimes.
Yeah, and so I mean the other thing is like I feel like everybody's stressed right now, like whether we realize it or not, is coming from our phones and our social media feeds, blah blah blah. Like we are products of all the stuff that we consume. So if all you are consuming is negative news and blah blah blah, it doesn't give you a chance to consume like the good that might be happening locally. So again, like the big part with events is like when you're there, you get to experience it. You get to immerse yourself in it, and you get to see like, wow, this community exists, or I didn't know about this part, or this is what they do, blah blah blah. Try to immerse yourself like in, again, volunteering with these like local nonprofits around us and see the good on that side. Because if again all you're doing is just consuming like all the negative news, it doesn't give you a chance also to take some action that promotes some good back out into the world. So not that we should like turn our eyes away from what's happening across our country. And I mean like specifically our country, because like right now we're like Leia told me, like we're watching the rest of the world enjoy their pizza parties for listening to the rules by wearing a mask and blah, blah, blah. but we don't get pizza yet. So, okay, where am I going with this? Basically, pay attention to what is happening in our nation. We look at all the feed and blah blah blah, and hopefully it invokes some sort of emotion in for you to figure out like, okay, where do I stand on all of this? What is something that I can do, that I can control, that affects the bigger purpose and supports the bigger purpose? And so that's a huge part of I think why everyone being at home and having all this in their face, it's giving them the time to realize like, dang, like where do I stand on this? Like what can I do? And it's super overwhelming. Like it's so overwhelming for everyone. Like know that everybody in the world is going through challenges right now, and I don't know anyone that's having an easy time through this right now. So yeah, again, just focus on what you can control and see what you see, and hopefully that inspires you to do something. So
yeah. And again, coming back to like your local community, like I agree. It's totally depressing to sometimes keep just watching, like especially national news. And it does make you feel helpless, right? You're just like, well, what can I do? Like I know there are people who feel even about this election, this presidential election, that it's hopeless. That they're just like, well, I don't think I think it's all like my vote doesn't matter. It's just like rigged already or whatever, what have you not. It's already this way or that way. And it's just like, okay, well, if you feel that way, that really sucks. Please still vote. But at the same time, like, again, going back to your local community, like you really do you have more of a say here. You really do. Like it's not that California blockade thing doesn't happen. Like it's not like we're the San Diego community. We get to vote on so many different things, how like our school is affected, the funding of our police or the defunding of our police so that we can fund more education again. Fund more mental
social workers.
Social work. Oh my gosh, please, social workers. Like those are the things that we can have effects on, and we already are having some effects. So like, again, focusing on that smaller community, if like the country at large is just making you feel too small, like turn to local news, or like just like turn around and go out your door, like, and just like look around your community, because you definitely do have more effect there. Oh man, I'm so glad I brought you on to talk. It's so interesting, and it's just such another point of view too.
Yeah, I think the other thing that like you kind of just like spurred in my head like as you were talking is like you step outdoors and you see your community out there, but like go the extra step if you have empathy in your body, which I hope more people start to have, especially during these times. But it's you see people who don't, and they're just like on the comment section, like I'm ruling this internet comment war, but whatever. Like again, like maybe just go the extra step when you step out your door, see your community, but then like also try to like figure out like, are there parts of my community that don't get as strong of a voice either? And then like, yeah, either figure out if there's a nonprofit community that's supporting those voices and uplifting those, or if not, then maybe you could be the voice that they need to get access to whatever resources or the voice that they deserve. So, again, I feel like there's some it sucks when our community is silent on things. It sucks when our community is complicit in things as well, because then they don't get any resources, or they don't get any support. And so whether they, that could be for a number of reasons. They could be scared to speak out. But again, like that voice is still equally as important as one that is super loud. And so all we're seeing is obviously all the super loud ones right now. And again, luckily, I think, like especially for the Black Lives Matter moment, like we are being heard, and we are being heard across all the channels. And anyone that says Black lives don't matter, I'm sorry, you're in the past right now, and you need to step into the future.
Yeah, so I feel like people are doing great. Well, people are doing way better than they have before with celebrating and uplifting and actually like listening to the Black community. Like that's like a sense of like, you know, like the things we're talking about, you know, like there's not enough resources. Well, if there's not enough resource, how can we give each other that resource? And right now, like, you know, us as allies, our resource is support. Like support and amplification, like spreading, you know, listening to the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement and just being like, yes, like share this education. Like, yes, like we do the whole unlearning thing, like decolonizing yourself, like unlearning, especially like as like children of immigrants or, you know, like immigrants ourselves, like getting away from that sentiment of like, oh, I'm lucky just to have this. So I need to be quiet because I don't want this to be taken away. This is more than I have ever had. And therefore, like, I just need to be happy with it. But it's just like, dude, you're in America though, and you're an American citizen. Like, you should be treated as well as anyone else here. Like, otherwise, and like, what is this? And why did you really, you know, why'd you come here? You said you came here for more opportunities and more safety. So like, we need to have that. Like, should we have that?
Exactly. Well, I mean, again, I feel like everybody just needs to realize that like we're not right all the time. Like whatever we see and do, like we're just not right all the time. And sometimes we need to learn a lot of new things to get back on the right moral compass of where things are going. And so a lot of people, they want to halt that. They don't want to learn. They just want to be right or stuck in their ways. And again, that's what keeps things backwards. And again, like what we see is a lot of our leaders obviously want those ways to stay the same because it supports their privilege, blah, blah, blah. But again, like the sooner our communities all realize that, hey, our voice is equally as important and I want to step up, I want to do something, then become a leader in your community and make some change because again, like we need it, like, or else we're going to continue to see the same system as exist because they're the only people running essentially. But you know, we are seeing that change. We are seeing the change of more people of color being in office, and we're immediately seeing the difference of perspectives and compassion towards communities that are often heard. So many things that are important to get involved. And, you know, with San Diego, like, again, we're really lucky. I'm grateful we're in this environment that allows us to just like go out and hike and eat and enjoy the outdoors. And we have outdoor dining and like living our lives this way, essentially. But, you know, being in San Diego at the same time, like a lot of people don't realize, like, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done, like for others, and people aren't enjoying this like the way we are a lot of the time. So, yeah.
I totally understand. Like, because there's a strange thing that happens where apparently you can't be grateful and want to bring up problems at the same time. It's just like, I can be grateful I live here. There's systemic racism that is also here. And I should be able to be like, both. Like, I should be like, both. I love it here and I want it to be better. Because it's not safe for everyone. It's not, there's not justice for everyone yet. Like, does that mean this is the worst place in the world? No, I don't think so. But like, you can, yeah, like there's that weird thing, right? Where it just feels like if you complain, you're not grateful.
I see. Maybe that's a cultural thing, you know, like, I feel like that's like maybe that's a culture. You just like spurred like a traumatic moment or something in my history where my like parents were all like, no, you be grateful. Like, you know, you don't complain for what you got, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it is a cultural thing. And maybe it's time for us to push past these cultural barriers that we didn't realize we had. But, you know, speaking out when we are seeing things that are unjust and shouldn't be happening and innocent lives being lost, yeah, we should be speaking out. And I am grateful for everything that I do have. And then I'm grateful for the voice that I have because I can speak out for those people who can't. So, dude, we're complex human beings. Like, we are not like this like single line sort of individual. None of us are. And again,
Yeah.
everybody's on a different point in that line, but I hope everyone gets to the point where they, have taken care of themselves enough that they can start taking care of others in the community. It means a huge difference. And again, it shapes our world. It shapes the world we live in.
Oh, so good. It's so true. And I love that you said, like, take care of yourself so you can take care of others. Because that is also, at least for me, that's like a very cultural thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like having a really unbalanced sense of like self versus like where I belong in a community, but like not in a fun way. like it is so important to take care of yourself. And I honestly do believe like the more you, it sounds cheesy, I still believe it, like the more you learn to love yourself and understand yourself, like I feel like that just translates, like when you're not hard on yourself, when you're not unforgiving. Let me phrase this another way. When you're unforgiving to yourself, you're automatically going to be unforgiving to others. Because like, why? Like you're no, like it's easier for like I did this a lot when I was younger. Like my response to my trauma was basically like, if I can suck it up, you can suck it up too. So your boy problems are stupid. Like that was like high school me, and I was like, looking back, I was like, damn, that's like ice cold. Like, I mean, one, I shouldn't be comparing traumas anyway, or suffering or pain, right? Like that's just like, but like it's such an easy thing to do, and it's such an easy mentality to have. Like, like it's always been like this, right? Like that whole thing, like, which is part of like upholding systemic racism. It's always been like this, but it's always been like this. We never spoke out against this. We've always thought this way. So why are you thinking differently? And then so you stop challenging it. You just stop.
Oh, but then we realize, wow, we're in a whole new age where we have all this new technology and we're able to connect with other people and like see their experiences and realize, hey, shit, those experiences are things that they shouldn't be going through in the first place. And so that's when you want to start dismantling things that are broken and that are unfair, because holy crap, they're being affected so differently from than probably the people that are able to speak out and really make a difference in support. So, yeah, like a lot of my friends who are activists, and so like I'm learning so much. I don't consider myself an activist, but I am part of the movement, and I want to push it forward. And that's how I will use events to amplify the voices of our multicultural communities to push them forward, give them the platform to push themselves up and forward. So, I don't consider myself an activist, but a lot of my activist friends, they'll say that like, self-love is a form of like radical love, essentially, because, a lot of the systems that we have, like, I don't know, like a 40-hour work week, for example, or blah, 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 like will tell you that like you have to be this way or this standard, blah, blah, blah. And it'll make you feel negative about yourself in other ways. And so like, why? Like challenge the things that are like could be a toxic environment for you, and remember that like you need to love yourself first before anything else. Like, and then when you're able to be in that position to do some good and you have loved yourself enough, then you can start showing that love to other people. And it's usually our friends, that's usually our family. And when you can go beyond that, then you can show that love to your community and build them up.
Yeah.
As well.
I honestly think like the more you work on yourself, like the easier it becomes to love others, like, and like actually connect. Like, I don't know if it's like a vulnerability thing where it's just like, you've opened your heart to yourself for one. So like, like you can sit and have those feelings long enough so that you can like know what they are. And then therefore it's just like easier, it's easier to be compassionate, to be empathetic, to be sympathetic, just like realizing like, no, like my experience will never be the same as even yours, right? Like we will never have the same experiences, but we know what pain is. Like, like we're both going to have pain. We both have mental health that we have to deal with and attune to. We're both going through a pandemic. Like it's not this, like it's not exactly the same, but there are things that we can still relate to. you know, and it doesn't have to be the same. Like, we don't both have to be like Filipino, like for it, you know, like for us to be like, oh yeah, like we might have like a good number of same similarities, you know, like as opposed to like me and my boyfriend who's white. But like I'll also have like my overlap with him. Like, yes, we might have some things in our histories that connects us better, and that's great. And I don't even want to say better, but maybe like quicker, more historically, but like that doesn't mean you can't connect to other communities either. Like finding the similarities there, and especially a lot of time, like what you said with the small businesses, food, right? Our love of food, the way that different cultures express themselves and their love for their families and other people too with food, like that's like a big thing. That's a big thing to a lot of cultures, and we all can understand that because we feel it in our own. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, again, I also like see a lot of beauty in just like connecting in the struggles too, you know, like just going through it together is a beautiful process in itself. And so like, you know, when we're talking about like self-love, it's important to understand like too, I think like this is a big thing that I had to recognize for myself, is that like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry a lot of the time, but it's just like, you have to work through it and realize like that's that emotion right then and there. You're welcome to feel the spectrum of it, but is that the emotion you want to have moving forward on your like self-love journey? So for me, it's like I had to let go of a lot of anger, and like a lot of sadness too, because I realized like, hey, like this is like the human spectrum of emotions. We're gonna go through this. We're gonna go through our challenges, but at the same time, like then I disconnected myself and I was like, that's not what I wanted to have moving forward. And this is how I'm going to work on myself to get through those emotions and heal. So again, I hope more people are going through that journey, especially like now that like they're in the pandemic and they're at home and they get to introspect a little bit more. But you know, now that, you know, people are trying to like normalize everything again, like never forget that conversation with yourself. Like, where do you stay on the right spectrum of loving yourself and then eventually hopefully loving your community you're in. So
yay. Yeah. It's already 6:28. The hour went by really quick, or at least it went by really quick.
I didn't realize it went by that fast.
So I guess I will end with a question for you. And you can repeat the things you said, or you can say new things. That's totally fine. So what are your top 3 ways, like your favorite top 3 ways to get involved in your community or in the community?
Okay, well, and there's like, yeah, and like when I say like, I talk about like community as like, oh, cool. I'm like, I support our Asian Pacific Islander community because I grew up in Hawaii, and then that's like where I found my community here in San Diego, which was like such a huge culture shock. But I think just like assessing like where you find like the most happiness, the most joy, like the most like love, and realize like, okay, that's one community that you're in, and how do you give back to that? That could be something as simple as like your gaming community. That could be something like your church, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't get into this too much, but also like assessing like that organization that you do join, like where do they stand on like these bigger issues at hand in the conversation? And like, what are they doing to change the narrative or give more space to communities that don't have a voice? That's super important. And now's a great time to ask those questions, I feel. So that's one piece of advice when you do get involved with the community. And I guess the last big one is just like realizing like your help goes so much goes such a long way when you get involved with like a smaller nonprofit community. You could become a leader in them, and then they will definitely surely love the support. So get involved where you can. Take care of yourself first, though. Like taking care of yourself is still the foundation to all of this. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't take care of others as well as you could. So, you know, I have a lot of really great friends who like would rather like give it up to their community and like support them first before taking care of themselves, because they realize like there's all these big issues at hand and people aren't living the great lives that everyone gets to live. But at the same time, like you can't pour from an empty cup. So like if you're completely burnt out, or if you don't like love yourself as much as you absolutely should, then the community can't get the best of you. So I do think that taking care of yourself is just the foundation to all of this. And like we actually have like a mental health mukbang like right after this conversation with Nap to tell people like these conversations are so key. So yeah.
Yes, just follow Lauren into the next thing. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. It's been so fun, and it's been so cool just to hear like another perspective. It's been so cool. And our community is cool.
Our community is cool. They're super cool. And again, help them out when you can, because and it's the ones that are helping other people out also.
Yes. And so with that, please check out Dee Dee McClure, San Diego Bailout. That's our local San Diego grassroots bail fund, where you can help people who are still protesting on the street, right? Not everyone can go out and protest for their different reasons. So instead of doing that, what you can do is donate money to help them when they get in trouble. Lauren, tell us where we can find you.
In the world. Find me in the community. That's the best, I don't know, to find me. Like honestly, like I take a lot of breaks from social media when I can, even though I'm like marketing and I have to like post on social media channels to get the word out for things. I take the breaks and then I get out in the community. I feel like that's the best way to like meet me, is like coming to one of the events that I throw. Now a lot of them are virtual. So you can follow my website, socialartistry.co, but you know, I don't know, like I work with a lot of different communities. I encourage you to find those communities, and I might be in them. So
it'll be like a hide and seek. I love it. Yay. Thank you everyone joining us. Please check out Lauren's. Please check out Dee Dee McClure. Please, like Lauren said, take care of yourself so you can get involved in the community and find that fulfillment. Because I honestly feel like that's something I feel like everyone really is looking for community. And we're not saying like get involved with everyone in San Diego, but even just like finding one place where you feel like you belong and you can like really contribute to, like, that feels great. That always feels so great. So again, thank you for having this conversation. What a great freaking topic, and what a great way to be like, yeah, San Diego.
Yeah. We got a lot of work to do, but
we still got a lot of work to do. Yes, we have a lot of work to do. Okay, bye everyone. Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself.